The gospel, it brings hope. The seed of the gospel is hope. And that's what Paul says in verses 6-7. Look with me again. It says this. Sorry, backing up into verse 5. It says, you have already heard about this hope in the word of truth, the gospel that has come to you. It is bearing fruit and growing all over the world, just as it has among you since the day you heard it and came to truly appreciate God's grace. Paul says the gospel plants hope. What is this hope? Well, imagine with me for a minute that you win the lottery. I know you haven't even played it, right? No one's been playing? Don't tell me. But you've won the lottery. And so now you've got this, however much money it is, enough to have 30 orders of Chipotle. And you've got this, now you've won all this money. Where's your hope? Is your hope in the fact that you know the money is somewhere? No, your hope is that the money exists, and the hope is the money. It's not that someone has it in a checking account. And sometimes we get this wrong. When we think of our hope being in heaven, we think heaven is the hope. We think escaping this world and going somewhere else is the hope. That we hear that again and again and again and again. When someone passes, we're like, oh, they're in heaven now. And that's good news, and it's true. We should hope for heaven. But ultimately, Paul is saying our hope is stored in heaven. This is why it's very important to understand our prepositions. The hope is reserved for you in heaven. That the hope is located there. It's not the hope itself. If you remember a few weeks ago in our final sermon from the model prayer, or if you don't remember, it's not the destination, but the perfect person at the destination that is our hope. It's Jesus that's our hope, not heaven. Heaven is a good place, and it's a place we should long to be. And over in the scriptures, it talks about us being citizens of heaven. But our hope is not going somewhere. It's being with God. And again, it connects back to the beginning of the Bible story. What Adam and Eve lost wasn't just paradise. They lost paradise and a perfect relationship with God, which is what we were created to have. More than paradise. Because paradise without God is not good news. It's still not everything we want. But through Jesus, the relationship has been restored for those who believe. And someday when we die or we go to be with Jesus when he comes back, we will fully enjoy the hope that we were created to enjoy. And ultimately, the hope will be that Jesus will come back and remake this earth, that he will renew creation and give us new bodies that last forever as we were created to be. And we will fully enjoy that hope. And so our hope is untouchable. This is the gift of the gospel. Now, sometimes if you listen to sermons online or on TV, you may hear people who try and sell you a lesser hope. There are sadly many people who stand up and say that they speak for Jesus, and they say, if you follow Jesus, you can have all you need here and now. And they focus so much on the here and now that they say if you have enough faith, God will give you whatever you want. To these people I ask, have you read the New Testament? Does Paul have less faith than you do? Because if getting all the good things is a result of faith, then Jesus and Paul needed more faith. This is called the so-called prosperity gospel. It says our hope is that we can have whatever we want if we give the preacher enough money and trust God enough. But that's so far from the truth. Jesus spoke about persecution. Almost all the early apostles were killed for their faith. We know better. We know better, right? Like, okay, you're like, of course, Jeff, like, duh, like we're here. We know that that's not what you need to believe. But I still think we settle for small versions, mini prosperity gospels. We may not believe that God will give us whatever we want if we believe enough. But we think if we're faithful to Jesus and we go to church every Sunday and Wednesday and we pray and we give and we read our Bibles, we believe if we do everything that Jesus asks us to do, that he will give us a good life. Not perfect, right? We've got enough good theology that we don't expect perfect. But we suddenly believe that when bad things happen to us, that God has not kept up his end of the bargain. That if God, I'm praying, I'm reading my Bible, I'm giving, like I'm doing all the things you tell me to do. Why is my life still so hard? Why do I still have this sickness? Why do I still have this problem? But the truth is, and this is a hard truth for us to hear now, God owes you nothing. He loves us perfectly and gives us many gifts. We matter and he wants us to exist, and we exist because he loves us. But his love is all he promises to us. When, not if bad things happen, it reveals what we believe about God. Because suffering is inevitable. We live in a broken world. It's not necessarily that God's causing suffering. It's that we exist in a broken world where suffering happens. And so when it happens, how we react, how we respond, shows where our hope ultimately is. And if our hope is in some small version of the prosperity gospel, it reveals, God, why are you letting this happen? It's okay to ask why. Job shows us that. But then we get mad at God and we blame him. And he's like, why didn't you give me this? I did all that you said. I did all that you asked me to do. These small prosperity gospels may not promise wealth, but we sure think that they promise health. We may have better theology than Kenneth Copeland, but it's not much better sometimes. Like, God, why do you allow this to happen? I did everything. Why? Like, and I'm preaching as someone who's experienced this. I'm not saying this is you guys. I'm saying I'm in the boat. I remember plenty of times where something bad happened. I was like, God, this isn't fair. And then slowly, through his Holy Spirit, he reminds me, no, what's fair is eternity separated from me. I was like, you're right. And I realized all too often that I subtly believe that God owes me things if I'm faithful to him. And he doesn't. He doesn't owe me anything. He has given me everything that I have. Everything that I have is a gift from him. And if he chooses to remove it, it's not him being cruel. That's him being in charge. Whenever we think that God owes us something, we demonstrate a radically low view of God's grace toward us. When we think our actions have earned anything from God, our performance doesn't earn us blessings. Our faithfulness to him often does result in blessings, but it's not something we earn. The hope that God gives us in the gospel is so much better than performance-based blessings. Rather than judging God's love for us or his faithfulness to us by our circumstances in a fallen and broken world filled with suffering, we are to judge his love for us and faithfulness to us by our hope reserved in heaven. Whenever the circumstances change, we can go, but my hope hasn't. When things are going really well and you're succeeding and you're thriving, you're like, my hope still isn't here. When things are going awful and there's pain and there's suffering, we go, okay, my hope isn't here. You see the difference? Like, God's faithfulness to us is based on the fact that he doesn't change his promises, not our always changing circumstances. And the security of our hope is good news. It's good news because the gospel doesn't change. Everything changes, right? Everything changes. Like, I used to not hurt my back when I reached to tie my shoes. Why do you think I slip them on now? Like everything is constantly changing, but the gospel doesn't change. The hope doesn't change. It's secure. It's untouchable. It can't be taken away. That what Jesus has done is guaranteed our hope. And if even death cannot stop God's plan, then surely his promise to give us a future with him is sure and certain. And this good news, it becomes a seed of hope. Hope that's untouched by circumstances. But hope is one of those things that we get, but we don't get, right? Like, I know what hope is. I understand it, like, theoretically. If I mention the word Disneyland around Lizzie, she just changes. Like, she could be like really sad, like, oh, why didn't you give me this candy again? And then say Disneyland. Oh, she's like, okay, yes, I remember it. Like, I love it. Like, I'm so excited. Like, she tells me a story. She remembers all the things that happened. It's like, it's been almost like 6 or 7 months now. She immediately remembers it. And if I mention like anything about it, she's like, oh, I want to go back and I want to meet Elsa and I want to meet Mirabelle and I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to do this. And she just like gets really excited. And she's got like all these stories that she's ready to tell me. And she's like, I remember when I went and hugged Minnie Mouse and she didn't let go. And she's just like really, really, really excited. And the idea of going back is so exciting for her that it changes everything. Friends, heaven and being with Jesus is even more exciting than Disneyland and a heck of a lot cheaper. And the thought of it, the dwelling on this reality is like that's the response it's supposed to bring up in us. Is like, I get to be with Jesus and I get to see like my lost grandparents, and I get to see like that's how heaven is supposed to be for us. It's supposed to excite in us this reality that we know is going to happen. And we can't even begin to imagine how exciting it is. I think believers who suffer a lot get this better than those of us who don't. Those of us who've had it a little bit easier, it may be harder for us to be excited about heaven, I think. And so sometimes we feel bad for people who've been through a lot. But for those people, it's usually easy, like, oh yeah, like I understand, like it's better somewhere else. But even when things are good, we know it's not as good as it will be when we are with Jesus. Being with Jesus, that's our hope. That's what Paul's saying, that this hope reserved for us in heaven that keeps bearing fruit.